I sold my dream house to pay for their education. I cashed out my retirement fund for their weddings. I babysat their children every single day for years. Now, at 73 years old, I sit alone in a one-bedroom apartment, and my phone doesn't ring. My name is Margaret, and this is the story of how loving my children too much destroyed our relationship. If you'd asked me 20 years ago where I'd be today, I would have painted you a beautiful picture. Sunday dinners with my 3 kids and their families. Holidays surrounded by grandchildren, growing old with the knowledge that I'd been a good mother. But life had different plans, and the hardest part. I did this to myself. Let me take you back to 1985. I was a young mother with 3 beautiful children, Sarah, Michael, and Emily. My husband, Tom, worked long hours as an accountant, and I was a part-time nurse. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. From the moment those kids were born, I made myself a promise. They would have everything I didn't have growing up. I grew up poor. We wore hand-me-downs. I worked 2 jobs to put myself through community college. When I looked at my babies, I swore they'd never know that struggle. So I sacrificed. When Sarah wanted to take violin lessons, I picked up extra shifts. When Michael needed a tutor for math, I cut back on groceries. When Emily wanted to join the travel soccer team, I sold my mother's jewellery. And I was happy to do it. That's what mothers do, right? We give everything for our children. But somewhere along the way, giving them opportunities became giving them everything. When Sarah got into a prestigious private university, the tuition was $45,000 a year. We didn't have that kind of money, but I couldn't bear to see her disappointed. So my husband and I took out a second mortgage on our house. We drained our savings account. I told Sarah not to worry about student loans, we'd handle it. Then Michael wanted to go to the same type of school. Then Emily. By the time Emily graduated, we were $300,000 in debt. I was 60 years old and our retirement fund was empty. But I told myself it was worth it. My kids would be successful, they'd be grateful. They'd take care of us when we needed help. Right? After college, Sarah got engaged to a lawyer named Brad. They wanted a big wedding. Sarah showed me pictures from magazines, the venue, the flowers, the dress. It would cost $60,000. She looked at me with those same eyes from when she was 5 years old, asking for ice cream. Mom, it's my special day. It only happens once. My husband had just been diagnosed with early-stage diabetes. We were already struggling with medical bills, but I couldn't say no to my daughter. We sold our house, the 3-bedroom home where we'd raised our family, where we'd planned to grow old. We moved into a small apartment and gave Sarah $40,000 for her wedding. Michael got married 2 years later. We gave him $30,000. Emily, $25,000. By the time I was 65, we were living in a 1-bedroom apartment. My husband's health was declining, and we had exactly $1,200 in savings. But I still told myself, it's fine. We gave our kids a great start in life. They'll be there for us. Then my husband died. Tom had a heart attack at 68 years old. Suddenly, I was alone, grieving and terrified about money. I called Sarah first. She cried with me on the phone, said she'd help with funeral arrangements. The funeral cost $8,000. I asked if she could help contribute. There was a long silence. Mum, Brad and I just bought a new house. We're stretched really thin right now. Can you put it on a payment plan? I called Michael. He said he'd just had his second child and money was tight. Emily said she'd send $500, but that was all she could manage. I paid for my husband's funeral with a credit card. After Tom died, I thought my kids would be around more. I thought they'd check on me, invite me over for dinner, include me in their lives. At first they did, for about 2 months. Then the calls became less frequent. The visits stopped. Sarah lived 20 minutes away, but I'd see her maybe once every 2 months. She was always busy, PTA meetings, Brad's work events, the kids' activities. When I'd ask to see my grandchildren, she'd say, "We'll figure something out soon, Mum," and then weeks would pass. Michael moved to another state for a job opportunity. I understood. It was a great career move, but he'd promised to visit and then cancel at the last minute. Emily was the worst. She'd ignore my calls for days, then text back, "Sorry, been swamped." I started to realize something painful. I had become an obligation. My 70th birthday came and went. No one visited. Sarah sent flowers with a card that said, "Sorry we couldn't make it." That's when it hit me. I had given my children everything, my money, my time, my dreams, my security, and in doing so, I taught them that I had no value except what I could provide. I never asked them for help. I never showed them I had needs. I never let them struggle or figure things out on their own. I raised them to be takers. And now, when I had nothing left to give, they had nothing to come back for. Last Christmas, I did something I'd never done before. I didn't buy expensive gifts. I didn't host a big dinner. I didn't bend over backward to make everyone comfortable. Instead, I wrote each of my children a letter. I told them I loved them. I told them I was proud of them. But I also told them the truth. I told them that I'd sacrificed too much, and in doing so, I'd hurt both them and myself. I'd robbed them of the chance to be independent, to appreciate what they earned, to understand the value of struggle. I told them I was lonely, that I needed them in my life, not out of obligation, but because family should mean something. I told them that for the first time in my life I was going to focus on myself. Sarah called me, crying. She said she didn't realize how absent she'd been. She admitted that she'd taken me for granted because I always just handled everything. We had the most honest conversation we'd had in years. Michael and Emily took longer to respond, but eventually they did. I'm not going to lie and say everything is perfect now. It's not. But slowly things are changing. I joined a book club. I volunteer at a community garden. I'm taking a watercolour painting class, something I always wanted to do but never had time for. And my relationship with my kids. It's different now, more equal, more real. They don't visit out of guilt. When they do come, we actually talk, we connect. I'm learning that being a good parent doesn't mean sacrificing everything. It means teaching your children how to be strong, independent, and grateful. If you're watching this and you see yourself in my story, I want you to hear this. Giving your children everything doesn't make them love you more. Sometimes it makes them respect you less. Your value as a parent, as a person, isn't measured by how much you sacrifice. You can be generous without being a martyr. You can be loving without being a doormat, and it's never too late to set boundaries, even with your adult children. I'm 73 years old. I live in a small apartment. I work part-time at a library to make ends meet, but I'm finally learning to value myself. And you know what? My kids are learning to value me too, not because of what I give them, but because of who I am. If I could go back and do it all over again, I wouldn't give away my house. I wouldn't empty my retirement fund. I wouldn't say yes to every request. Instead, I'd teach my children the most important lesson of all, that love isn't measured by money or sacrifice. It's measured by respect, presence, and genuine connection, and that's something you can't buy. Thank you for listening to my story. If this resonated with you, please leave a comment below. Have you experienced something similar? Are you a parent who's given too much, or an adult child who's realizing you took your parents for granted? Let's start a conversation, and if you found value in this story, please subscribe. I'll be sharing more real stories from people just like us, navigating the complicated, messy, beautiful reality of growing older. Remember, it's never too late to reclaim your life. I'm Margaret, and this is my story.